Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today we're discussing the Zenith Chronomaster GT, and this watch is stacked. Part of the El Primero family, it features a high-rate automatic chronograph, a triple calendar, a moonphase, and yes, flyback capability with a chronometer certification. 42 millimeters in diameter in rose gold, this classical 90s style Chronomaster. Features a thickness of 13.1 millimeters, and from lug tip to lug tip, 48.6 millimeters is the span across the wrist, with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch fits well, but I probably wouldn't recommend it for a wrist much smaller than mine. 15 centimeters circumference, you could probably get away with it, but much smaller than that, you're probably going to have some lug encroachment on the edge of your wrist. When you look at this down the barrel, you can see it's not really close to the edge of my wrist. The top shot's a bit deceptive just because I'm pulling it so tight to keep it seated. But you can also see that it is quite thin, and with a triple-stepped bezel, it'll slide easily underneath a dress cuff. Now, some of the Terry Nataf era changes were visible here. This watch was sold in 2003, and you could see things like solid lugs as opposed to lugs with strap tool holes, as well as refinements like full deployant clasps instead of pin buckles. These upscale refinements have arrived, but they have not yet been paired with some of the bizarre designs that would follow in the mid-2000s. This is still very much the Chronomaster design that debuted back in 1994. Now, the buckle is a big upgrade, as we get an awful lot of gold here. It's very heavy. It has a snap-shut system to hold it, and then just to give you an extra measure of support, there is a clamshell lock inside the buckle that will lock the strap into the buckle. So not only you get a full deployant clasp, but you also get this clamshell lock system to make sure it's just as secure as if this were a screw-fixed buckle. You can see that the fluting and the taper of the buckle matches the profile of the case. There's some nice design parallelism there. The entire assembly is quite massive. With thick gauge gold used, it really inspires confidence and imparts a feeling of quality. The lugs have fluted shoulders. You can see there is a triple-stepped bezel. And you can see that the watch is beautifully sculpted all the way around. Now, the Chronomasters would get much, much bigger in the early 2000s, but at 42 millimeters, this is still a reasonable size for a multi-complication. And you can see we have these oval-shaped chronograph pushers and an older 90s style Zenith Star logo on the crown. Taking a look at the dial, at center we have a sort of curtain guilloche pattern and then a dental pattern outboard. And outboard of that, a tachymeter scale, which can be used with the chronograph to gauge the speed of an object, such as a car over a kilometer. We have rosette guilloche inside each of the sub-registers, each of which has its own dental style guilloche pattern. We have applique rose gold indices and radially arrayed Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's 4. We have a triple calendar with the day, the date, the month and the date have a quick set mechanism, so I can rapidly set the date and it will drive the month display. The other features, the calendar, the moon phase, and the day, are driven using push adjusters in profile. The watch does include flyback chronograph capability, which means a quick reset and restart without first having to stop. It's great for timing events that occur in rapid succession. You can also see we have exceptionally long and faceted Dauphine hands for the hours and the minutes, which make the watch easier to read. That faceting creates a better contrast, as you can see from these angles. Now, read the dial closely. You can see it is a Zenith El Primero caliber 4001 inside the case, and it is a COSC certified version of that caliber. Another big upgrade from these years was the use of a 22 karat gold rotor in an era when 21 and 18 karat are common. 22 really feels luxurious. Again, you can see this is a slightly older style, as we have the 90s and 80s and late 70s style Zenith Star logo on this lovely multiply finished rotor, which features beveling, satination, and then guilloche. The movement, featuring 31 joules, is a bidirectional automatic winder with 50-hour power reserve, 5-position adjustment, COSC chronometer certification, a combination of a crisp column wheel and a lateral clutch for operating the chronograph. Being an El Primero, as with most El Primeros since the first landmark model of 1969, it is an integrated automatic winding high beat chronograph caliper, and that beat rate is 5 Hertz or 10 beats per second, 36,000 vibrations per hour. All of this water resistant down to 30 meters. As I mentioned, this watch is incredibly stacked with features. The column wheel feel is world class. The history of the El Primero is unrivaled, and the design here still a very traditional 90s style Zenith. Even though the watch itself was sold in the early 2000s, this is very much of the 90s, a kinder, gentler, classical era of Zenith design. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.